I'm Will Jarvis, I'm CEO of Gertrude, and we're here in Soho at a hair salon called Tone. And this is kind of a favourite way of exhibiting for me, which is quite playful, quite off the cuff. And effectively, what we're doing is we're riffing off Gertrude Stein's salons, which were in the early 19th century social gatherings where all of the kind of movers and shakers got together, from Picasso to Hemingway. And the wine did flow, and so did the conversation. What we're doing, that's a little bit of a playful riff, is doing a salon hang within a salon. It's a hair salon, and we're here with 40 artists that are all from the Gertrude platform, and I'm doing a series of interviews with them to talk about individually their works. And the agenda really is to bring art to a broader demographic and to really reach out and encourage people that would otherwise maybe not see so much contemporary and exciting emerging art to be sat with it and spend some time with it and hopefully acquire some of it.
Okay, here we are with Kenji Lim. We're just having a look at his very cute, adorable little work in a section of the show we've titled Cute Corner. Can you please tell us a little bit about your piece, Kenji?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's thinking about things that we have as decor or items of interest that might have been alive once or could still be alive, and how we take things out of situations and put them into our own ecosystems in our houses.
There's a real playfulness to it, there's a cuteness to it. What do you think your influences are that inform the work?
Well, I'm really interested in filmmakers like Miyazaki and Jim Henson and those kind of animist ways of looking at the world that those directors have. So it's like a cute filmic thing which taps in directly to the way that we see the world.
So kind of a bit of like Eastern spiritualism in terms of animism and the world, or I guess there's a lot of tribal cultures also have animism at the heart of their culture, though, the idea that consciousness is throughout.
Absolutely. So it's kind of, I actually kind of see it as quite universal. So it is quite an Eastern thing in looking at Miyazaki, but lots of cultures around the world have animism at their core. But actually, so as children, we kind of instinctively have animism as a worldview. We see things as alive and able to interact with them in that way.
Amazing. Also, magic mushrooms. If you take those, that's quite an animist vibe. Okay, I'm here with Jen Nieuwland telling me about Madonna songs with her work "Express Yourself," which is just behind me here. Jen, could you talk to me a little bit about your artwork?
Well, it's part of a series of works that explore essentially the female body as a site of kind of rupture and resistance. And yeah, it's really about kind of trauma, but also release and catharsis. So you've got this kind of spaceship-like breast that's hovering above this nocturnal space. And on it are mapped these little kind of portals or jewel-like openings where you get these kind of vaporous, leaky, sticky substances being expelled. And essentially it becomes this kind of vessel of sensory overflow. So it's a kind of metaphor for female experience. And all my work deals with the kind of tragicomic of living in a body. So there's always a kind of level of fragility and darkness, but also playfulness and a bit of humor.
So I'm here with Neil Haas, and we're looking at his work Night Vision just behind me as part of the Salon show. This is in the heads corner of the hang, where we've grouped a bunch of heads together. But Neil, could you talk to me a little bit about your work?
Hi Will, hi everyone. What do you want to know? How I made it, why I made it?
Yeah, why? It's on a tile, right?
So I found these really beautiful tiles that my mum, she moved house, she had a new bathroom, new tiles, these were leftovers. And I've just got this habit of like going through rubbish, going through leftovers, trying to turn rubbish into something beautiful. And I think that's something really magical that art can do, that you can transform something just with a couple of hours or a day's work. You can turn something that was about to be chucked out into something that you would want to keep forever and look at forever. And I think I'm obsessed with like youth and beauty and I don't know, like desire, and having and not having, but I think I've always been like a voyeur, that I always see things, but I don't like engage in things. So making something like this, I think the eyes and the faces, they're kind of lost.
And another thing that I thought was quite interesting is you're talking about voyeurism, and this is made on a bathroom tile. So I think there's the voyeur and the context of a bathroom that aligns quite nicely. And I know in previous works you've also used quite unconventional materials as a medium, like blinds, window blinds, for example, which you've drawn on. So you have this
Mirrors sometimes, like I've used old mirrors that must have been looked in 1,000 times.
Interesting.
And then they've ended up, and I've got hold of them. And the same with the blinds. It's that thing that we kind of live with something.
Yeah.
And like the association of who's lived with it, kind of before it reaches me sometimes. Was it someone kind of beautiful who would have sparked my desire?
Yeah.
Or is it just the memory or the thought of it that counts more?
So it's kind of an abstract longing that you're connecting to, that kind of there's a collective relationship to longing, and that's a key kind of ephemeral aspect that you're honing into within the work. Universal.
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm here with Anna Redding, and we're talking about her work Peace Flower Hibiscus as part of the Salon show. Anna, what's the vibe? What's it about? What's it about? We've angled it so that people getting their hair cut in the salon there can be can look right up into the flower and feel this kind of like triffid looming over them.
Yeah,
what's your vibe with it?
Well, so the work is really a process-based work. So it's made over a pile of sand that is kind of laced with debris and broken shells and rubble and organic material, but also debris from my studio, kind of leftover waste. Then kind of material is poured over, casting material is poured over with lots of pigment and colours to pick up the debris. So it's really about regeneration in a moment of collapse. I then, once I'd made the works, I really thought about how things grow out of spaces of destruction and how things persist in the face of maybe conflict and adversity. That's right, I'm interested in hostility and survival in hostile spaces. So the flowers really made me think about the work of Elliot Hodgkin, who painted the flowers and the weeds that grew up after the bombing of London in the Blitz, and trying to think about the way that organic forms will persist and survive and maybe mutate through adversity. So that's the peace flower notion of it. Yeah.
There is something, I always feel like your work, there's something distinctly British and kind of pebble dash and suburban. Is that a conscious thing, or do you think that reflects somewhere that you've come from or a key aspect of it?
Yeah, that's a brilliant observation. Actually, pebble dash has been one of my main inspirations through my
I'm a fan too.
Oh yeah, I love it. It's such a actually, my grandparents had a pebble dash house that, as a child, I used to kind of look at and think, what on earth is under this material, and try to work the material out. Yeah, absolutely. It's a sense of the British coastline for me comes up again and again in the work. This space of transition between a border boundary, somewhere we can kind of look out and then also look back in at ourselves and our nation state, and again the kind of flora and fauna that grows on the rocks around around those areas, the lichen and the limpets and the shells, the oyster shells.
And they're little micro islands in and of themselves, almost like the rock pools. Like there's that meta sense of islanding or isolationing, and I guess little microecologies that are growing out of things.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's like what's their life like in a rock pool? What does it like to live in a rock pool? It's a space of fear. There's the animals that live in there are hiding, and then they're kind of creeping out and revealing themselves as like gems that you can search for. It's the same as when you discover an artwork that you love and it's been hiding, and then suddenly it reveals itself to you.
And it speaks to you, and it's very unique and special.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. Well, thank you. I'm with Charlotte Worthington, and we're looking at her piece, Animal. What's it called?
Animal One.
Animal One. It's the first. Why is it Animal One?
It's an ongoing series of work on metal, which I base on drawings, and I emboss them and push them and pull them, and it's one of many, and each one starts as animal, and then it's numerically goes on and on and on.
And why animal? There seems to be lots of human forms.
Yeah, I think it's, for me, is like my work is about unease in the world, and especially unease in the home.
Unease in the home, in like a domestic context, there's unease.
Yes, mainly. And for me, there's a lot of association with the word animal, with that on a very personal level, of what my mother used to call me. And also, I thought that was quite a good reference point.
Okay, interesting. I'm going to say something that might be a bit deep. I feel like we're looking at the surface and how you treat it. I feel like you bully the surface.
Yes.
And I feel like maybe there's a relationship between that and some experiences you've had.
Yes, you've absolutely captured a real strong theme in my work, which is about that, and also about control and coercive control.
Are these in part self-portrait? Are you in this, would you say, consciously or unconsciously? Unconsciously,
and I
present.
always feel it's better to leave it open to people to step in or step away from what they think they're seeing or how they relate to it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm here with Rebecca Parkin, and we're looking at her work, Scream, Little Froggy, Scream. It's a pastel work on paper in a beautiful frame, and it's got a little bit of a BDSM, a bit of a power play aspect to it. Could you talk a little bit about the work?
Yeah, it's from a series called The Princess and the Frogskins, which I started in the last year. And it's based on a very well-known fairy tale, The Frog Prince, which everybody knows. But in my story, it's kind of... Well, in the original one, she has to accept this frog into her bedchamber, which she's not very pleased about. So my story is very much turning the tables on the original, where the princess, she's kind of driving the narrative. So she's taken the frog for a picnic here, and then embroiled him in a kind of a little game of erotic asphyxiation.
Okay, and that's quite typical of your work, isn't it? Which is like you'll often touch on art historical imagery, and you'll kind of subvert it with a kind of feminist twist.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I'm very keen on kind of using these narratives, because what's interesting is like a lot of people, they already know the story, but they know the original story or they know the original characters. So I'm kind of like drawing into focus the way that I'm changing them, and the way that the female characters are much more assertive, and you're kind of focused on them rather than so much the story around them. It's much more about what they feel about it and how they are kind of controlling the story.
So it's this shift from it being like them being the object from which a circumstance happens to them, and that being spoken about. Now it's like subjective from their viewpoint, and with a shift in the dynamics.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm here with Iain Hales, and we're looking at his work. So Iain, thank you for participating in this show. Could you tell me a bit about the work? It's a very beautiful three-dimensional sculpture. What's driving you to make such work?
Oh God. Well, for a long time, 10 years maybe, I've been making work that's exploring this idea of a sculpture that performs more like a painting. And so that started immediately after my master's. I made like a freestanding sculpture that was really, really flat. So it was this idea of making something that was so flat that it became like a painting. And then this work is part of a series of works that I made for an exhibition called Paintings, all caps. And so it is this idea of like you stand in front of the work, it flattens, it becomes an image. And as you move around it, it becomes an object again. And I suppose in some ways I'm thinking about sculpture's relationship to photography and the way work is distributed mostly nowadays, via social media and whatnot. And sort of trying to sort of look at that sort of almost like head on, but always thinking of it in a sort of a kind of very kind of painterly way. So colour, materiality, the way light is either reflected off materials or is sort of drunk up by them. I kind of often say that whereas a painter might use a palette to modulate the colour, I'm using form, texture, light and shade to do the same thing.
So it's really artwork at the intersection of painting, sculpture, and photography, with an optical aspect and a sensitivity to materials.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You got it right.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. We're with Brooke Fitzsimons, and we're looking at her work called Masking. So Brooke, your work is often of heads and paintings with a beautiful surface and very thinly layered paint. What's the driver for you? Why are you making these works? What do they mean to you?
Yes. So I've always tried to make work that's really minimal. So what can I do to make something that represents human experience and without being too specific? So the idea of using a silhouette to go ahead kind of works for me in that way. So it's quite particular that events, there are eyelashes, there's sort of, there's kind of almost remove the tint of the might show, because then it's very minimal and two-dimensional, and then I lay that off against some other silhouettes and platforms, and just, they're like kind of serial plant eggs, really. And the platforms, the platform, the feature, well, what feature is images, and the way it's really two-dimensional, and it's the surface at the same time.
So essentially finding a kind of harmony within the work and the balance, and these micro gestures or micro representations, when they work together, they can time and you can find that harmonic balance.
They can find a balance, but I don't want it to be so balanced you don't notice them. So they're a little jarring and they're not quite, they're not comfortable. There's something a little bit out of whack, and that keeps the surface outwards and keeps that image kind of working.
I'm here with Stephen Akpo, and we're looking at his work, Strange Relationship. Stephen, why is it called Strange Relationship?
It's about the relationships that we have with ourselves, how we look at ourselves, not just in the mirror, but internally. It's kind of inspired by title of a Prince song of the Sign of the Times album. With the opening lyrics are, I guess you know me well. So I was really thinking about how well we know ourselves, how deep we look at the things that we think about, and most importantly, what we think about ourselves. So it's more of a illustration of an internal feeling.
Interesting. And personally, I'm really drawn to like the sensibility on the surface of the paint. It feels like there's this like undulating kind of textured feel to it that's kind of seductive. Could you talk a bit about the process?
Well, I like the word. I like the idea of the seductive part of it. With most of the works that I do, I use my hands and my fingers because I'm partially sighted. And so I kind of, almost like working with clay, I knead the oil paint into the canvas first, and then sometimes I go over with a paintbrush. Mm-hmm. With this, I was looking more visceral, aggressive train of thought of how I maybe thought about myself in that moment. Mm-hmm. When I painted it, it's a series of paintings. So this is just one aspect of it. There are just very minimal colors here. I've just stuck with a very minimal palette of, I think, black, orange, and I mix some other colors in there.
It's interesting because I think often people talk about feeling their artwork, but you literally it literally is a felt artwork, and that's how it's manifest.
It really is. It's a tactile thing. Not only is it a tactile thing, it's become more of a style for me. I find that I'm more connected with the work that I do because it has literally my hands on it, not just a brush.
Amazing, brilliant. I'm with Karen David, and we're looking at Redux 2 and the usual suspects here. Karen, what can you tell me about your work? Where the names come from, first of all?
The names are all from X-Files episodes, which was a TV series in the 90s with two FBI agents who were investigating paranormal events. And so since, maybe 2018, I've been naming all my paintings after the X-Files episodes.
Why is that, though?
It means a lot to me, the relationship that the FBI agents had, because one was a believer and one was a skeptic, and I really enjoy that space in between.
Okay, interesting. And these, what I noticed the most is how tiny, adorable, and delicious these artworks are. Why so small?
Tiny, adorable, and delicious is a really great way. I like that. Sometimes, in fact, often they're larger. So these are exceptional as the smaller ones. And I made them because sometimes when I'm making larger paintings, I have excess paint left over, and so I make extra paintings on the side. But then they end up looking really sort of compact and quite intricate. I think the scale works quite well for the type of marbling and piping that happens.
Yeah, they're really intimate works that draw you into their micro scale, and they have a potency that's quite remarkable for something so small. And they are delicious, and part of the reason they're delicious is because they're made in a similar process to cake making. Is that right?
Identical, but without the ingredients. Yes. So these are made with oil paints, and they take about a year to fully dry. So with the time and the ingredients, that's the only difference. But I'm really interested in this relationship between craft and what we might consider high art. So again, that space in between, this kind of non-linear sort of liquid spaces that you can get into something quite interesting.
Cool. Okay. Ambiguous, tiny, delicious, adorable. Very good.